What's up, guys? Toad back again as usual. Fresh off a 2-0 night, both in baseball. Two baseball sides, both hit. Boston Red Sox got a little dicey. It was definitely a close one. You need some luck sometimes. I'm not going to say that it was the wrong play to make, although Dean Creamer did a lot better than I thought. That was a big part of the handicap was his terrible numbers at Fenway and against my Boston Red Sox. He put together a good start, and the game was really close. Nick Pivetta did well on the Red Sox side, and it was 2-1 Red Sox pretty deep into the game. Red Sox gave up a home run to Santander, like the bank. The banks are ruining everything. He hit a home run to tie the game in the 8th inning, I think, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. But then it got even worse, actually. It went into extra innings, and you get the runner on second, of course, the stupid runner on second rule. It's almost an automatic run. So, of course, Baltimore, they have a pretty good offense, too. So they score that run. They're up 3-2 in the 10th. And then the Red Sox, of course, they're also going to get the runner on second there in the 10th. Man, my camera, of course, will not adjust again. Usually it's fine. It's StreamYard with that other streaming software I was using as just to get quick videos out. It was more of a problem. But yeah, then the Red Sox had the runner at second, and they not only scored that run, but Tyler O'Neill hit a walk-off 3-run homer. I was watching it. You can watch Tower Gang from last night, the 9/11 episode. We were appropriately on 9/11. I had it on, much to the chagrin of the viewers. I guess they did not like how I was reacting to it. You get to see how everything happens, man. A lot of times I don't even watch the games I bet on because I get too stressed out by it, but that one, I mean, it's my favorite team, and I had the bet on them, and they're fighting to stay alive, and I don't know, it's just, I had to have the game on. I did. Walk-off 3-run home run, I mean, very exciting. The place seemed like it was going wild at that point, so it is something it's good to see. And then I finished up the night with the Seattle Mariners having a fairly easy win in the nightcap as well, to cap off the 2-0 night for me. So let's go. And I'm going to be going against one of those teams today. Let's talk about it. The baseball card. Oh man, I don't even have the card up right now. I was looking at the college football schedule because, yeah, we do have a college football game too. I'm only going to have one play, and it's going to be in baseball, but I did eye a couple of these other games. I will say Cleveland is not in a very good spot. They're returning home from a road trip, and I think they've actually been on a little bit of a slide. I don't think they're totally in danger of like losing the division, although it is getting a little bit close for comfort. But oh no, wait, they beat the White Sox. Never mind. I was thinking about them losing the Dodgers series, but yeah, they actually swept the White Sox, so they're doing fine. But they are returning home from that road trip. It was actually a successful road trip. They're up against Tampa, but of course, I always say when it's a return from a road trip, that is a negative situation. The team tends to be a little bit distracted as you have to get back to home life. You have things to do around the house. As I've been pointing out recently, it becomes more exacerbated when you have a day off in between the return home or before the first game after you return home, which is not the case here. I think Cleveland is just playing through. Tampa also is. Tampa just got swept by Philadelphia. Tampa, they know their season is over. So that's the one issue that I have with betting Tampa here is that you have to gauge, like, are they going to be motivated? Which games are they still going to be motivated in? I think they were still motivated in this Philly game, though. I mean, you can kind of tell they only lost by 1 run in 2 of those games. That tells me that Tampa was still playing competitively. So I don't think that they're just throwing in the towel, even though they know the series is over, even though I would be hesitant there. But when they're playing good teams like Baltimore, Philly, Cleveland, I do think that that's reason for them to still kind of show up to these games. Like, hey, you're still playing for, like, a sense of pride at the very least. And Cleveland in that bad return home spot. And I do think Tampa has the better of the starting pitching matchup here with Ryan Pepio pitching. 3.66 ERA, 1.14 whip on the season. He's been good. He's continuing to pitch fairly well recently, except that one start against San Diego is kind of throwing off all his numbers with 4 walks. But I don't think that really indicates that much to me. I don't think he's just completely fallen off a cliff or anything like that. Up against Cleveland, I think he also does have good numbers. 27 at-bats. He's held him to 3 hits, no extra base hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts, a 111 average, and 254 OPS. So he has held these pretty good Cleveland hitters in check as well. So I like the Pepio side more than I like Gavin Williams, even though I think Williams is probably a little bit better than his numbers would suggest. 5.25 ERA and 1.37 whip is certainly not good. 64-26 strikeout walk ratio on the season. 56 hits allowed in 60 innings is pretty good. He doesn't allow that many hits, but he does walk too many guys, and that's been kind of the case recently too. And he's been struggling recently. 6.56 ERA last month in August, but he did face a slew of pretty ridiculous lineups there. Baltimore, Minnesota's not bad, Milwaukee, Yankees, Royals, all those teams can hit. Then Royals again, and he actually did really well in that one, even though they had just seen him. And then the Dodgers game, he really, really struggled mightily in that one and only went 2/3 of an inning, giving up 5 earned runs in that one. So 7.04 ERA in the month of September, all because of that start after a good start against Kansas City. But this still indicates to me that he's struggling recently. His strikeout walk numbers aren't good. He does have decent numbers up against Tampa, and Tampa is an offense that isn't that potent. He's held them to 4 for 20, but 3 doubles, a couple walks in there. 200 batting average, 623 OPS. So I think Pepio is still the better pitcher. So Cleveland's in the bad situational spot. Pepio is the better of the two starters over Williams and is also in better recent form and also has the somewhat better numbers against these opposing hitters, although Cleveland obviously has the better offense. Cleveland is down from they're up, from minus 138 to minus 140. I keep thinking that the money line is moving in the direction that I agree with, but not always. 78% of the tickets, though, Cleveland very public, of course, because they have the better record. Everybody knows they're playoff bound, but only 64% of the cash. So a little bit less of the cash than the tickets on the Cleveland side. Also indicates to me, so that's some market indicators on the Tampa side for me there. So that's the way I lean in that one. This is a short baseball card this week, man. And then I also lean to the over in the Red Sox-Yankees game. Both of these teams are coming off extra inning games. I mentioned the Red Sox went to extras. The Yankees went to extras last night, too, against the Royals. So this is a big game. So you might think, well, that might indicate it could be an under because maybe it means you're going to have like a pitching duel. You're going to have more focus. I don't know. Like in other sports, it does mean the defense is going to be more focused, but baseball is a different sport, man. It's definitely matchup dependent. And when you have two teams that just went into extra innings and they just used a significant amount of their bullpens last night, both teams did, and I don't think their bullpens are really that good. And you'll see, I think both of these starters are pretty vulnerable to giving up some runs as well. And this is Yankee Stadium, man. I mean, some runs can get scored in Yankee Stadium. This line's up from 8.5 juice to the over to 9 juice to the under, so a slight move upward. I see 52% of tickets on the under, but 58% of the cash on the over. So I do like the over in this one, with the bullpens being fairly used last night. And then look at the starting pitching matchup here for these teams. Cooper Criswell is pitching for the Red Sox. He's not been that good. 4.11 ERA isn't that bad, but a 1.34 whip, not very good. 66-27 strikeout walk ratio is not good. He doesn't strike guys out. The walk rate isn't that bad. It's just the strikeout rate is so low that it's a bad strikeout walk ratio. He's given up 96 hits in 92 innings, so more hits than innings pitched. And he struggled recently. 6.43 ERA in the month of August. That's not good. With only a 6-9 strikeout walk ratio, that is terrible. And he never went more than 4 2/3 in any start in that entire month, even though he did face a bunch of good offenses that month. Faced a couple of somewhat weaker offenses this month, even though the Detroit's been hot. He somehow no-hit Detroit for 4 innings, and then he had an okay start, but against the White Sox, you should do fine against the White Sox, man. And he didn't even strike anybody out, and he walked 2 guys, so that's still kind of alarming to me, even though he has a 2 ERA in those 2 starts this month. He's not going deep into these starts. He's not a very good pitcher, dude. I'm sorry to say. My Red Sox could be in trouble here. This is not going to be an easy go of it for them against the New York Yankees. And Yankee Stadium's a pretty decent hitter's park as well. We only have a 20 at-bat sample size, although it's spread across basically all of the Yankees hitters. They've hit 300 off him with a 714 OPS, so not bad numbers offensively against Criswell. He's just not very good. And then Nestor Cortez is overall the better of the two starting pitchers. He's putting together a decent season for the Yankees. 3.97 ERA, 1.15 whip, although I've always thought he was a bit of a vulnerable pitcher as well. 147 to 33 strikeout walk ratio is good. 155 hits in 163 and a third innings pitched, also good. His strikeout rate isn't that high, but he's not walking a lot of guys. He's not giving up a lot of hits, but you can see recently, these last couple of starts, he didn't go very deep into these starts. I don't know what this was, where he actually had a no-hit performance for 4 1/3 and got pulled from that game with only 48 pitches, and he was pitching fine, so maybe there was like a rain delay in that one or something. I don't know what that was, but a shortened start for him. I don't know if that's going to throw him off his schedule. Probably not, because he still made the start. His start before that against St. Louis was bad, where he gave up 5 runs in 4 innings, but he was on a nice run before that. Although against White Sox, Washington, they're not good, but a good start against Cleveland, who can hit pretty well. Had a string of really bad starts leading into that, but then it seemed like he was rounding back into form. Then that one bad start against St. Louis, but then a good start against Chicago. So is he in good recent form or is he not? I don't know. I would say he kind of is more so than not, but it's a little bit tough to say. And he's a decent pitcher overall, but I do think he's vulnerable to a lineup that can hit pretty well, like the Boston Red Sox. We got a 79 at-bat sample size here. 25 to 4 strikeout walk ratio is good, but the Red Sox have hit 316 off him with a 944 OPS in their careers. So I think the over would be the way to look in that game between the Red Sox and the Yankees. That one is close to being a play for me. Don't think I want to quite do it just because the Criswell sample size is a little bit low and the OPS isn't that high, but he is really a pitcher who's struggling recently, so I think that probably negates that. But then Cortez is actually not that bad of a pitcher, so that kind of worries me as well. It's just his numbers in this matchup against the Red Sox aren't very good. Where I'm going to go those to a side, and I'm going to go against the Seattle team that was good to me last night. I think the pressure is mounting, man, in this wild card race, and I'm actually going to play the Texas Rangers, even though they're out of it. Texas, they seem like they're still trying at the end of the season, man. They're trying to do something, even though they haven't been playing that well recently. They're out of it. They're bringing back Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, I think, is being reactivated for the first time this season. I think coming off a long stint on the DL. So Texas, the fact that they're bringing these starters back and they're bringing up a starter to make his major league debut, who I think has really excellent stuff, that shows me that they're not really throwing in the towel here. And when they're playing against a division rival like Seattle, and Seattle could be playoff bound, I think Texas actually could be motivated here to play spoiler. I mean, that's a thing when you get like down to the NFL, like playoff scenarios. Teams that are rivals like this, the team that's out of it actually tends to show up motivated because they still have that motivation to not only show up for their own pride, but because they have the chance to like knock their rival out of the playoffs, and they do want to do that. So that does tend to motivate them a little bit, even though Seattle should be motivated as well because they're trying to make the playoffs. But Seattle, even though they are at home, their offense isn't very good, man. And Seattle used more of their bullpen last night in that game that I won on because they were trying to hold off the San Diego Padres, I think, last night. That was a big win for them. And they used a few of their best relievers last night in that game. Seattle did to close out that game. So Seattle's bullpen is actually in the worst of the two scenarios. Brian Wu actually had a perfect game going into the 7th inning of that game. So he pitched quite well, and then he just kind of lost it in the 7th inning. But they had a 5-0 lead at that point, so the game wasn't really in danger, and it should have actually even been easier. Even though Seattle only put up 5 hits in the game, Arozarena he was robbed of a home run at one point. I know that. There was a nice catch over the wall in the outfield there to rob him of a home run during the game as well. I think by Tatis, maybe. I don't know. I forget who it was. But so Seattle, I mean, they probably should have done a little bit better than that. But Seattle used the back end of their bullpen last night, man, including their closer. They didn't throw that many pitches, but I don't know if they're going to be available back-to-back days like this. And if they are, maybe they'll be in a worse state than they were last night. So I think their bullpen's in the worst state. Texas is coming off a really ugly loss, too, at Arizona. I think it's going to serve them well to just get out of there and go somewhere else and go on the road here because that's an ugly couple of games. They're losing 6-0 and 14-4. I think it's going to serve to refocus them to just get away from that and then face a division rival like this. So I think this is actually a more positive spot for Texas. to bounce back there. Like, that's another thing that's going to focus you. If you lose totally embarrassingly, even though it is to a good team in Arizona, and that was a World Series rematch. So Arizona, I think that was the only time they've played this season. I didn't even think about that when I was handicapping those games. Arizona might have had that World Series revenge in mind there. Wanted to beat the team that beat them in the World Series last year, and boy, did they do that. But now Texas gets to get away from that. Cody Bradford, who's been a good young pitcher this season, had a really bad start yesterday after pitching really well up until that point. But then Texas saved the rest of their bullpen basically by having their guys that throw long innings come in and save their better bullpen pitchers there. So I think that's good for Texas. That means their bullpen, I think, is in better shape than Seattle's is coming into this, even though Texas's bullpen I don't think is very good. Seattle's, I think, is kind of mediocre as well. And then we look at the starting pitching matchup. Bryce Miller's pitching for Seattle, and yeah, he is really good. 3.18 ERA, 0.99 whip on the season. He's having a great season, man, and he does pitch well at home, too. I think he has really crazy home road splits, too, and he is really good at home. 151 strikeouts to 38 walks. 20 home runs, not great, but the rest of his stats are really good. The strikeout rate's a little bit low, but strikeout walk number is really good, and very low amount of hits, 122 and 161 in the third innings pitched. But, well, I mean, his recent numbers, I would mention, they're also quite good. Although this month, I don't know, man. In 2 starts, he kind of started drifting a little bit. I don't know what this start was against Anaheim, really, where he gave up 3 earned runs, 3 walks. That's not good. He has an 8.5 strikeout walk ratio in 2 starts this month. Maybe that means he's starting to, he's not in the best form over those last 2 starts. Let's just say that, even though he was pitching really well in August with a 34-4 strikeout walk ratio. So I don't know. I still think that he's probably got the ability to bounce back here, but against this Texas lineup, I'm not quite sure it's going to happen in this game. Against Texas, he has struggled in his career with 35 at-bat sample size. He's only got a 7.4 strikeout walk ratio against him, and it's a 314 opponent batting average off of him and an 899 OPS. So he has struggled against these Texas hitters, man, as good as Bryce Miller is. And yes, granted, some of that is in Texas, and he does pitch a lot better in Seattle. But that still makes me want to lean in the other direction here, man, especially because Seattle's coming off a pretty big win last night, even though it wasn't over a rival, and Texas is one of their rivals, and Texas did win the World Series last year. Seattle's already faced Texas this year. I mean, they face Texas a lot. They're already used to it, but the X factor here is Kumar Rocker is pitching for the Texas Rangers. I'm like, oh, is this guy related to John Rocker? Is he John Rocker's long-lost half-Indian son? I don't know, but Kumar Rocker, I think, is the first Indian pitcher to pitch in the majors, maybe, or something like that. I don't even know what it is, but I hope he is like John Rocker, where he's just a crazy pitcher and just not only pitches well, but is just incredibly unfiltered and is just bashing multiculturalism on the subway trains or whatever. That would be awesome. But Kumar Rocker is not a white dude, so I don't know if maybe. I hope he has the white spirit. Let's just put it that way. No, I don't know. But Kumar Rocker, I mean, if you look at the guy's scouting reports, and this guy is kind of a giant on the mound, too. He's 6'5", 245, so he's going to be a looming presence on the mound. This is his major league debut. 24-year-old, and I always say when a guy's making his major league debut and he has really good stuff, which Rocker does, if you read the scouting reports on this guy, they're pretty insane, to be honest. Guys like that, when these hitters have not seen them before, that tends to be an advantage to the pitcher early on because these hitters don't know what to expect, and you got this tall guy on the mound who's going to be coming out and throwing gas at you and has good off-speed stuff, which this guy does. That could be a problem for these opposing hitters, man, especially a weak Seattle lineup. So the one advantage Texas has, even though I think they actually might have the advantage in the starting pitching matchup here, as good and as proven as Bryce Miller is, he doesn't match up that well against Texas specifically. And Rocker, like I said, could have the edge here because he's a complete unknown, and he is actually a guy who has really good stuff. But Texas definitely has the advantage as far as their offense. They have a better hitting team than Seattle does, so they do have that going for them. But Kumar Rocker, look at his scouting reports, man. This guy throws up to 99 miles an hour on the fastball. He's got a slider that's rated as like one of the best sliders out of all the major league prospects. I guess it's got like nasty break on the slider. He's got a curveball that I guess also has pretty disgusting break as well, though I guess the slider is the better of the two. And he does also throw a changeup, which, as is kind of typical, it's a typical Arsenal, where the changeup I think is probably the weakest of all the pitches, but still, this guy, he's got like an electric fastball, and his off-speed stuff supposedly is just really has nasty movement on it. So this guy is not just the average pitcher that's coming up. I think this guy, looking at the scouting reports and looking at his minor league numbers, this guy has some of the best stats out of the guys making their major league debuts this year, man. Like, I don't know if we're going to see another Paul Skeens, but, I mean, I definitely should not predict that. But I think Rocker does have just physically, he has really good stuff. He's got a lot of talent here. And look at his minor league numbers. They are good. He's been across basically all levels of the minors over the last couple of years, and he had some difficulty in rookie ball for some reason, but then in AA, AAA, his numbers have been insane. In AA, I think his ERA was below 1, and his ERA in AAA this season is in the 1s, although I think it's in a pretty small sample size, but his strikeout rate is also like completely insane. Like, I think he's got like 16 strikeouts per 9 or something like that in the minors this year, which is just completely crazy. You're almost striking out 2 guys an inning. Something insane like that. I think that's what or maybe that was his strikeout to walk ratio. I forget what it was. Something like that. But he also has a really low walk number. Like I think he has 1 walk in AAA so far this year, but it's like a 16-1 strikeout walk ratio. It's in like a limited sample size. But I think his strikeouts per 9 in the minors is still well over 9 per 9 innings. So I think it's at least like 11 or 12. So he has really, really good strikeout ability. And guys that throw that hard and have like nasty breaking stuff, a lot of times their problem is, of course, control, wildness, but we're not really seeing that out of him in his minor league stats, man. His walk numbers are not very high, so I like all of that. Like, we're seeing scouting reports saying this guy has insane stuff, and the minor league numbers basically seem to back that up with pretty good, I mean, beyond pretty good minor league numbers, like really good minor league numbers. So I think we could see something good here. I think he's going to have the edge here in the starting pitching matchup, man, even though it is Bryce Miller. So I also don't mind looking to an under in this game as well. Although Seattle, like I said, they've used some of their bullpen there. But you can see the line has moved from 7.5 down to 7. So the under is maybe okay, but given Bryce Miller's not very good stats historically against Texas and the situation that I just described there and the bullpen situations here, I actually like the Texas side more so. And that's my only play today. Seattle down from -160 to -152 on the money line. So the play would be to just take Texas on the money line, just fire on it at like +136 on the money line. And with a money line like that, you don't need to win every single one of those, man. You only need them to win like 40-something%. So you're not saying they're definitely going to win. You're just saying they have better odds to win this game than what the odds are that you're giving me, and you just need to cash 40-something% of those. So that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm saying. I hope it wins because I've been on a hot streak. But it's a long-term type of play when you play a money line underdog like this, which I do in baseball. I haven't had any recently, I don't think, but this is going to be it. Texas Rangers +136 behind Kumar Rocker. And then we're going to look at college football. We got one FBS game today, although there is another FBS team playing in South Alabama, but they're hosting an FCS team in Northwestern State, and I imagine South Alabama's a big favorite there, so I'm not going to pay attention to that. I don't even know if there are odds out at many of the books on that one, so that's a game that can be ignored pretty much. And then Texas State, Arizona State, this is an interesting one. We've seen a lot of line movement on this game, man, towards the Texas State side. If you got them at +3, good for you, because it looks like Arizona State opened -3 on the road at Texas State. Everybody knows Arizona State's one of the bigger conference teams, right? And I think where are they now? They moved to the Big 12 probably. Is that where they are at now? Texas State's in one of the smaller conferences, of course, in FBS. Yeah, Arizona State's playing their first season in the Big 12. Texas State's one of the mid-majors, but Texas State has been playing decently in FBS football recently. I think they made a bowl or two recently, so they're not a bad program. And we've seen this line move all the way to flipping the favorite to Texas State -1, so it's moved 4 points. A couple days ago, I saw it was still sitting at the Texas State +2, and I was thinking, like, if you took the +2, I still think that's probably a pretty good play. And as you can see here, it's at -1. The market indicators are all over Texas State here. 52% of the tickets are on Arizona State because Arizona State's the bigger conference team. Of course, the public is going to play them over playing Texas State, who they don't know who the hell they are. Texas State has 72% of the cash on them, though. I agree with the Texas State side. It's just that laying a point, I mean, it is still in that range where it's basically just pick the winner, so I wouldn't really tell you not to do it. I'm not going to do it personally because I don't like giving up 4 points of value like that. If it was still at like the +2 or something, I would be strongly considering it. I think the situation is pretty good for Texas State, or it's pretty not good for Arizona State. It's not the worst situation that I've seen, but Arizona State is coming off beating one of the big guys. They just beat an SEC team, Mississippi State. Mississippi State isn't that good, though. Like, Arizona State was supposed to win that game. Arizona State was the favorite, 6.5. So if Arizona State was like an underdog or it was like this really big battle or something, I would think this is a much worse situation for Arizona State. It's still not good, though. This is still a sandwich spot, in my opinion, for Arizona State because they played Mississippi State, got the win there. Now they go on the road. This is going to be their first true road game of the season, and it's, I think, an unfamiliar environment in Texas State. I don't think it's a place where they always go. So I think that is kind of difficult for Arizona State, too. Like, when a team plays their first true road game in college football, and it's an unfamiliar place to go to, that's a negative for that team as well. So that doesn't look good for Arizona State either. And then up next, I think they have a bye next week, but then they play, or no, they don't have a bye, I guess, because they're playing on the 12th on a Thursday. So this just means they're playing next Saturday, I guess, right? Yeah, against Texas Tech. So they don't have a bye there. They just have extra rest between the two because they're playing Thursday. But this makes it a sandwich spot, man. I mean, they're playing at Texas Tech next week. That's the start of Big 12 play, and they're new to the Big 12. So that's their conference opener, man, as a member of the Big 12. So that is a big game. So this is a sandwich, basically. They're coming off an SEC game, and they have their first Big 12 game up next. That is a big look-ahead spot for Arizona State. So this is not a good spot for Arizona State. And they're playing one of the little guys in between there, so that's bad. It is a bad spot for Arizona State. Texas State, on the other hand, they're 2-0 this season, but they just beat one of the FCS guys in Lamar. And Texas State, actually, that doesn't look good for them, where they only beat Lamar by 7, but Lamar is an in-state little brother, at least. So they are a Texas school. So Lamar maybe got pumped to play Texas State, who's a bigger brother to them, at least in the state of Texas. And maybe Texas State just thought it would be an easy go of it to beat Lamar, and that's what happened there. And Texas State just almost got caught because they weren't focused. And as we can see, they turned it around, and they played a UTSA team who's been a pretty decent program as well in FBS recently, and Texas State blew them out. So I think that's a good indicator that Texas State is not what we saw in that Lamar game. Like, Texas State's a decent team, and the odds makers are telling you they are too, lining them, like, the line is now a favorite, even though that still means Arizona State's the better team. The odds makers are telling you Arizona State's not the better team that significantly here. And Texas State, they have a big guy coming into their house, man, and this is the only big conference team they're facing all season. So this is a game they're going to have circled on their schedule, man. They have a Big 12 team coming into their place. That's big for Texas State, so they're going to be focused, and it's a primetime ESPN game. Texas State is not used to playing primetime games, man. I mean, Arizona State, I had ESPN on last week, and they were on in that Mississippi State game, and Arizona State almost blew that game, by the way. They were winning 30-3, I think, and then they wound up almost losing the game, or they wound up only winning by 7 or whatever, but I mean, if anything, that could, like, kind of shock Arizona State back into a little bit of focus. So I don't know. So that would be an indicator to play on Arizona State very slightly. But Texas State, I mean, they don't get primetime games on ESPN like this very often. They're playing one of the bigger schools, one of the bigger conference schools coming into their house. I think it's going to be a big atmosphere for Texas State here tonight, man. So I think they're going to step it up. I like the Texas State side here. It would be close to being a play for me. I just don't want to give up that much value. I like the side. The market indicators are all over it. Texas State would be the way to go there. Even at the worst number, there's no way I would start looking to the Arizona State side there. I do think that Texas State, if you had to force me to make a call on this as far as the line as it is now, the -1. Basically, who's going to win the game? I would still say it's going to be Texas State in this one. I think the spot indicates it, whereas Arizona State, this is a down spot for them in the schedule, man. It's a sandwich spot. It's between two bigger conference opponents here for Arizona State, whereas this is a step-up game for Texas State. It's like one of the biggest games on Texas State's schedule, whereas for Arizona State, it's one of the lesser games on their schedule. So there is that motivational disparity there where you can see it's that type of scenario that sets up for one of those smaller guys to be able to pick off one of the bigger guys when they're not totally focused there. So Texas State, I like the scenario there for them. All that talk is making me want to actually play Texas State, but I really don't want to do it not getting the underdog price. But between +2 and -1, there isn't that much of a difference there. You're kind of just playing it to win the game. So I don't know, man. What's up, Evil Bo Weevil? Yeah, you want me to condense it into shorts and call it Toad's Loads? Yeah, I mean, I could consider doing that. Maybe. Get more traction on and just put those out on like Twitter or Instagram or something just to try to get the, those quick videos out, get more views on it. Because these videos here, it's like, obviously it's long format. I just get into autist mode, but I'm trying to like, hopefully, like, people are learning something from me and figuring out, like, what my thought process is, because I've been doing this for so long, and this is something that works, and it's a way that I think about these games, man. So hopefully it is something that is helpful at the very least. And then you got Buffalo and Miami, man. NFL is happening tonight. We got NFL. The NFL Thursday night games, we make fun of the Thursday games because the NFL schedules a lot of real clunker Thursday night games, but this season that hasn't been the case so far. We get Baltimore, Kansas City to start the season off, and now we get Buffalo, Miami tonight. It's on Amazon Prime now, so you got to have Amazon Prime to watch it or find one of those other streams, I suppose. I do happen to have Amazon Prime, so I am able to watch these, but I find it to be kind of annoying to have to go over to Amazon Prime to watch it, but whatever. This is a pretty big matchup here in the AFC East. Buffalo and Miami. We know there's a rivalry there between Buffalo and Miami, as these are the teams that have been the two atop the conference recently. I lean to the Buffalo side in this one, man, even though Buffalo looks like they're taking a little bit of a step back this season as they've lost Stephon Diggs. Of course, he's over on Houston, so Buffalo has a couple of key components that they had last year no longer there, but Buffalo, as we saw when they lost to Kansas City in the playoffs, Buffalo had a lot of defensive injuries, and I don't think that's the case right now. So I think Buffalo's defense isn't as bad as what they looked like in those final playoff games there. So I think Buffalo defensively could be a little bit better than what they were at that point. Buffalo's still not a very bad team, man. I think Buffalo is still the better of these two teams defensively, and you're getting points with Buffalo. So I still actually lean to the Buffalo side if you want me to have a lean on this game on the side. Like, this is certainly not one that I'm interested in betting on the side here, but I do lean to the Buffalo side, and Buffalo has had the upper hand in this matchup. I think a lot of it because they're the more experienced team. They still have Josh Allen at the helm. They got a lot of experienced guys there, and they have the better defense over Miami, in my opinion, still, even though Miami does have a very potent offense. The defense wins bigger games like this, man, more often than they don't. So I think that's been the difference between Buffalo and Miami recently. Buffalo's had the upper hand, like I said. They're whatever it is. I think they've won like 7 of the last 9 against Miami or something like that. So Buffalo has had the upper hand. And until we see something change there, I think that may continue to be the case. So I'm going to expect that to continue to be the case. I had Buffalo in that late season, regular season game last year with Buffalo where they were still fighting to make the playoffs, which tends to get a little bit risky when you do that because that team could have a bit of pressure mounting on them, even though they do need to win the game. It worked out for me in that game, and it should have been an easier win for Buffalo than it was. So you could take that game two ways. Everybody kind of remembers that game. It was very late in the season to help Buffalo get into the playoffs. It was at Miami, so this is a kind of a quick-ish rematch. So Miami may have revenge on their mind from that, but of course Miami and Buffalo then both played in the playoffs. They didn't play each other in the playoffs, so they did play. Both of them got into the playoffs and played, and both got eliminated by the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is not a playoff revenge game, but that game kind of had a playoff atmosphere around it. So Miami may have a little bit of revenge on their mind because Buffalo did come into their house and beat them. Buffalo beat them twice last year. As I remember, the other game, I think, was that a London game? No, London was Miami, Kansas City. No, I think the other game was just in Buffalo. I think in Miami, I think was coming off Miami might have been returning from London in that game or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. I remember it being a decent spot for Buffalo. I think I actually played Buffalo in both of those games last year and won both bets because I think Miami was in some bad spot when they played Buffalo last year, and Buffalo was laying points at home and beat them at home earlier in the season. Then, of course, like I said, they went into Miami and beat them, and that game was close on the scoreboard, but Buffalo had some pretty major mistakes in that game that was keeping that game close. Buffalo really outplayed Miami. If you look at like the box score of that game, like yardage-wise and whatever, Buffalo really severely outplayed Miami in that game. I'm not saying that's going to be the case again necessarily, but I think the score was closer than what the game actually was. So even though Miami might have revenge on their mind, I think the close score in that game was also misleading, and Buffalo actually played better than it looked on the scoreboard there. But then Buffalo, does have those personnel changes too, like I said. But I still lean to the Buffalo side. We see Miami up from 2 to 2.5, and it looks like it's headed towards 3 with the juice there. If it hits 3, I think we are definitely going to see some play on the Buffalo side, because I think the professionals, I don't think, are like heavily on one side or the other in this one. 53% of the tickets are on Buffalo, so I think the public is also aware that Buffalo has beaten Miami, even though it's kind of mitigated by the public liking Miami's offense better than they like Buffalo's. So I'm actually surprised that the ticket percentage isn't slightly on the Miami side, really. But the public is still aware that Buffalo has had the upper hand and has beaten Miami most of their games recently. So that might be why we see the ticket percentage there. But we see more of the cash than the tickets on Buffalo to the tune of 59%. And like I said, that might actually become a little bit more the case if this winds up hitting 3. It would be a key number, so you're probably going to see some professionals really just playing the number at Buffalo at +3 there. Not much else to say about that. It's a close divisional matchup, man, so I lean to the Buffalo side, but I don't think there's that much else to say. I would probably also lean to an under slightly. This line has moved down on the total from 50.5 down to 49, juice to the under, so somewhat significant movement there towards the under. 75% of tickets on the over. The public is only going to want to play an over in Bills-Dolphins. They like both quarterbacks here. They know that this is a matchup between two offenses that have the ability to score. And then 87% of the cash on the over, though, kind of surprises me that I would expect the cash discrepancy to actually be more towards the under. So I'm not even sure that that's quite accurate. But in these primetime Thursday games, you tend to see the offense tend to not be totally clicking because it's a short rest week. So it tends to affect the offense a little bit in these Thursday games. So you do tend to see some lower scoring games in a lot of these. But this is one of those Thursday night games where the teams are actually familiar with each other. So like when the teams are unfamiliar with each other, I think you actually might see, I don't know if that actually would, usually that actually tends to be more of an over scenario if the teams don't know each other. Whereas when the teams are familiar with each other, they tend to, and it's a big battle like this in the division, they tend to play it more close to the vest a little bit and not want to make mistakes, and it becomes more of like a heavyweight type of fight between these two teams. So that would be another reason to take the under here, actually, because it is a divisional kind of battle between two of the top teams in this division, although the Jets might have something to say about that throughout the course of the season. Excuse me. Let me see here. Yeah, so I do lean to the under for those reasons. Then one of the other things that would make me lean to the Buffalo side a little bit is that road teams usually are at a disadvantage in Thursday night because there's a quick turnaround time. So you have the team that's at home, obviously, is used to playing in their own stadium. So the team that is at home tends to have a bigger advantage on the quick turnaround time because it doesn't take that much getting used to your home stadium. You're basically like ready to go. And if the road team is going into a place that they don't play very often, that tends to be a disadvantage for them because they're not as familiar with it. But of course, this is a divisional game. Buffalo plays in Miami every year. So I don't think it's going to affect Buffalo that much as far as them having to go to Miami on a short week. I don't think it matters that much. And as far as what these teams did last week, neither team did that well last week. Buffalo had kind of a scare against Arizona last week, where Arizona actually had the lead by 2 touchdowns early in the game and still had chances to maybe win later in the game. Miami also definitely could have lost their game against Jacksonville. And Jacksonville had a multiple score lead on them early in the game as well. And Miami came back and won that game. So both teams were favorites at home last week and both took a scare. So I don't think that plays as far as like motivation one way or the other. I think that situation kind of cancels itself out coming into this game. But the fact that Buffalo is familiar with having to go to Miami, I think mitigates the fact that road teams don't do as well in a lot of these Thursday games. I think when it's a divisional game like this, Buffalo, yeah, they're used to going to Miami, so I don't think they're going to struggle having to go to Miami. And then the other thing is that a lot of teams tend to struggle early in the season. If you're a cold weather team like Buffalo, you have to go to Miami early in the season. Buffalo, luckily for them, got to play in Miami later in the season last year, so they didn't have to go into the sweltering heat in September in Miami, which that can be a disadvantage for some teams. But Miami's kind of getting screwed with these home games early on, really, because the first game at home, they play Jacksonville, who's used to playing in the heat as well in Florida. And then the second game, they don't really get the full advantage of the heat here because this is a night game. So you don't have the sun out during this game. The sun's not going to be beating down on you and making this a really, really hot game. It should be a bit of a cooler game, at least as far as Miami is concerned, because it will be at night. So I think that is a better situation for Buffalo as well, or at least that mitigates how negative it could be for Buffalo. They don't have to go in and play in extreme heat because it'll be at night. And, I mean, on ESPN, they'll probably tell you what the temperature is going to be here. 87 at game time, but still, again, it still will be at night, though. So the fact that the sun won't be out should make it a more comfortable game there, even though it will still be a bit hot. So those are my feelings on all those games. My one play I have right now is on Kumar Rockers, Texas Rangers, plus the money line price there, plus 136. Texas State, I'm like really tempted to make the play on Texas State, though. I don't know if I want to do it, but that's a strong lean that I'll give you at the very least. That's going to do it for me, man. Have a good Thursday. I'll roll out to the college football week 3 video and the full NFL week 2 video at some point soon, hopefully. And that'll do it for me for this morning at the very least. Peace out. Thanks, Evil Ball Weevil, for hanging out in the chat and being the one viewer. Peace out.